We're here to explore the landscape beyond the headlines. My first visit is to Great Zimbabwe, an ancient Shona city in the southern hills of the country. Built as a royal palace for Shona monarchs, the site dates between the 11th and 14th centuries. And this is a very steep climb. Wow, take a look at that view. You get a breathtaking snapshot here of Zimbabwe. In the distance, you can see some of the rains rolling through. We are here during the rainy season, but that's not what we came here to see. Check this out. This is the hillside ruins or hillside complex. It dates back some 1,000 years. In fact, one estimate puts this at 1075 AD. Now, what exactly is it? Why is it here? There's a man inside who will explain all. Let's go. Wow! Just look around at this. I wasn't sure what to expect, but still, I'm amazed. All right, now let me introduce you to Stephen Chinua Zamuta. He has been a guide here for 4 years and knows everything. So let's meet him now. Stephen, how are you?
Hey, Errol.
Magadi.
Chinofara Makadini.
So I know as a Zimbabwean, this is a great source of pride for you and millions of others. But just tell me, what are we looking at behind you now?
We are looking at the only original entrance that has remained at Great Zimbabwe.
And so why don't we head inside and you can tell me more?
Sure, let's go.
So this, then, it sounds like, would have been the functional capital of Southern Africa.
It was actually a functional metropolis of almost South Central Africa in terms of politics and economics, which was very centered on the international barter trade.
And we're talking 1,000 years ago. How many people lived here?
Around 18,000 adults.
That's huge for 1,000 years ago in Africa at a time when most people were hunter-gatherers. While trade kept this community prosperous, religious life was also rich at Great Zimbabwe, and the focus for spiritual activity took place here in this amphitheater.
Being a population which was oriented upon religion, that's where these people were worshipping. And on that bedded horizontal side, that's where the king would be.
Wow.
And as you can see, the area cannot accommodate 18,000 population, which we have talked about. This was only important religious figures who were invited into the temple.
This was the inner circle.
Exactly right.
Of Shona
That's where most
elite.
of the inspiration from the spirit mediums and religious priests, which were sustaining the political life of the king, were coming from.
Spirit mediums define one aspect of the Shona belief system. All living things and some inanimate objects are believed to have a spirit, which can inhabit a separate but parallel world and communicate with the living via a medium. Hovering overhead are Zimbabwe's most famous spirit mediums of all, the African fish eagle, embodied in the soapstone carvings discovered here in the 1900s.
That's where the 8 soapstone carvings of the Zimbabwe birds were found.
They were excavated from this location.
They were discovered from this point.
Now, those birds are important because we see them today on the Zimbabwean flag, on the coat of arms. What did those birds symbolize?
While these people were worshipping on here, they would see the birds flying. And in particular, they would think that the eagles, the African fish eagles, were divine messengers, which had been specially sent by the Most High God to take their prayers to that God.
Great Zimbabwe is such an important part of the national identity that the country itself was named for this ancient city. Zimbabwe loosely translates to Big House of Stone.
That's the Great Enclosure, which is the biggest single pre-colonial structure in sub-Saharan Africa.
And what did it serve as?
That's where the first wife of the king was residing. Remember, the king had more than 200 wives. So the vow was...
Very busy man.
What a busybody. Yes.
Now, you can get the best view of Great Zimbabwe from this spot.
Exactly.
And is that because of what's behind us?
Yes.
What's in here?
That was the king's relaxing point, and we call it a bako in Shona. That's where he would relax during the day, overseeing where his wives were staying. This was also a very good communication point because the king could actually transmit his messages to his wives and subordinates. So if you shout from this point, the echoes can transmit the words to where the wives were living.
I think we should experiment that.
Sure, we must.
Why don't you get inside,
All right.
send out a message. We're going to see if we can hear it echo across the land.
All right. You heard it? So you know what then? As the sound will be going, the king will then transmit his message. The shape of this conical tower for its grain marketing board silos. So this is the face of Great Zimbabwe.
We move over to the Great Enclosure and watch as Stephen guides groups of Zimbabwean school children through the area. But I wonder why this site doesn't attract more global recognition. After all, it is the largest ancient structure in sub-Saharan Africa.
It is because if you'd refer to the pre-colonial era, and the much publicity which came was by the explorer, Karl Marx, who was from Germany. He did much of the publicity, but much of that was Eurocentric.
Eurocentric meaning Africans couldn't have built this?
Exactly. They thought that a much more civilized world could have done this.
But most of that has been disproven by modern science.
Exactly. Well, exactly.
Now generally agree that it was the Shona people
yes,
who built this. It was Africans who built this.
Exactly.
Now, the rain has just been dogging us since we've been here, but you were also telling me that there's a bit of tradition which says rain is a good thing when you first come somewhere. Tell me about that.
Yeah, whenever you arrive on a site and it starts raining, it is a blessing because we are agro-oriented.
So we should look at this as a blessing.
It is a blessing. You feel honored. Why? Because in the Shona society and Zimbabwean society, they feel that this is a blessing if you find rains or it rains whenever you arrive at a place.
Well, you know what? I'll take it as a blessing, and it's been a pleasure.
You are really honored.
Spending time with you, Stephen. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Call again and continue spreading the gospel about Great Zimbabwe back to your loved ones.